And when you were traded away from Hawthorn, leaving behind Arctic Park, did you think your days were over as spending very cold days training out in the field?
No, it's not something I spend too much time thinking about, the weather. I think every day is a good day for football.
Talk us through the review and what you learned from what happened.
Really, it was about fundamental skills. We spent a couple of extra days up there, and we did learn a lot and looked a lot. I looked at a vision a lot, and I know the coaches did as well. And the fundamentals of the game, they obviously handled the conditions better than we did. Not from an experience point of view, just from a football smarts point of view. We didn't. We tried to be a bit too cute with the ball and tried to overuse it and look for perfect plays. When really it was a game for scrappy, contested type of play, and we weren't able to produce it at anywhere near a good enough level to compete with them.
I know it wasn't the average trip for you guys. You spent extra time there, and a few people stayed on longer. So what did you get out of the off-field stuff?
Yeah, I mean the off-field stuff was excellent. I think on a personal note, I always say, in some of our First Nations people, that the way their they would call family, what to me would be my brother or sister, wouldn't necessarily mean the same thing to them. And I always conceptually understood it, but being there and being in their communities, we did a couple of activities around, they call it different skin names and different things in their kinships, and having some of their elders explain that to us, I really felt like I understood it for the first time. And so that was a brilliant experience. I mean, I was able to take my son as well, and he came home just with such a different understanding of communities and Aboriginal people and our own nation's history.
Sam, I feel like I ask you this every week, but what's the situation with the rucks? Will you get recognised ruckman this weekend?
Well, there's a few opportunities. We've got so Max Lynch is unlikely to be available. I don't know if he's been officially ruled out yet, but I don't think he'll be available. Ned Reeves we're hopeful. He got through a training session last week, and he'll do another couple this week. If he gets through all of those, then he'll be available. Plus, we've got the mid-season draft tonight, so wouldn't be the first time that someone's come in off a pre-season draft and come straight into a team. So there's a possibility for that as well.
So just on Max Lynch, did he sit in concussion? Is there issues with him completing the protocols?
No, I'm not. To be honest, I haven't had an update yet. This was a day earlier than we normally would do it, so I haven't had the medical updates at this point. But he was in at the club. He was in our meetings. He's doing some training today, so I don't think he'll be far away. If he is unavailable, then I assume he'd be available for next week. So he's not well behind or anything like that. So we're hopeful. I think footy manager Rob McCartney over there just gave me I don't know either. So I'm not sure if he'll be available. He's a chance for this week still, I think. Hopeful as well. So we got another 2 training sessions still to go this week. We assume he'll get through those, and then he'll be available. But if he's got any sort of signs or any sort of worrying, then we'll obviously not risk him. But he was a very low grade sort of incident that he had, so we think he'll probably play.
Is Ned a calculated risk if he does play with the shoulder?
I mean, every player that walks on the field is a risk of getting injured. He's got enough strength in it now, so he was pretty safe the week just gone. Would have been nice to have a recognised ruck in the side, but he'd only done one contact session to get there, and that sort of was enough to technically tick him off, but it wasn't enough for what we would call our threshold for a player that we think is going to be important for our future. So we wanted to give him every chance to actually be able to perform at a high level with some confidence in his body. So he'll have 4, might have even been 5 training sessions by the time he gets to game time. And if he gets through all of those incident free, then he'd be available.
You touched on the mid-season draft. Are you likely to take a ruckman given what's transpired across the first half of the season?
Yeah, we got some meetings this afternoon to go through it. I haven't seen a finalised order yet. Certainly, there's some rucks that are pretty high up on our order list. So, if we get a ruck, that'll obviously fix some short terms. But we're very much long term. We're not looking to take Anything really that will just help us for a short period of time, unless it's got a significant, cultural upside for us. So what we need is to make sure we get good people into our organisation who can, potentially play in our next premiership. That's what we're really looking for. So that'll be the focus of the draft.
Sam, what about a mid-season trade? Paddy Dangerfield today in his role as President of the Players Association saying he hopes to see it within a couple of years even. Is that something that you'd be open to, that you'd like to see the game take on?
I haven't thought about it. I guess the more I think it would be, my first instinct is to think about, I wonder which players would like that and who we could get and who we could. Certainly there's some players from other clubs that aren't getting our game that we could use. And I'm sure the other way will become true at different stages, but the player would have to be on board with it, I think, changing mid-season, and whether or not they go back to their other club at the end of that season. What did he say about that? Was it a loan or was it permanent?
No, it wasn't that detailed.
I got more questions than I've got answers, sorry.
You've had success going to Box Hill with Jai previously in the mid-season draft. Is there anyone who's caught your eye, particularly who's already sort of in the farm system?
We'll tell you tomorrow. But
Sam Frost, how do you cover him?
Yeah, well, Frosty's been playing a few different roles. He was our second ruck and a key forward on the weekend. Key forward the week before, been a key defender on the weeks before that. I think he's played every game for the season. So, it was a disappointing incident, and we've had a chat about it, and he knows that he's let the boys down. So we'll miss him this week. But from a personal point of view, not him having a week to recharge and get back some energy, I think this time of year is not a terrible thing.
Milestones are usually individual based, but this weekend you got two really good mates playing game number 250. What does it mean to have those two play together?
Yeah, it's very special. 500 games. I think I read somewhere that they played 214 of them together, of their 250. It's pretty amazing that they've been able to spend that much time together, and their wives are great friends. They've been on overseas holidays together, and they're great, both great people, been great servants at the club, and they've produced such fantastic football, premierships, but also the legacy that they'll both leave with. The influence they've had on the organisation, on individual players, on the way we do things around here. They've been fantastic stalwarts of the club, and I think them playing together is really special, to be honest. They've played so much together, and they're such good friends. And most players would think, oh no, I want my milestone to myself. Whereas I think these two, this is actually perfect for them because they've never been guys who wanted the limelight, and so this week them sharing it, I think, is pretty special.
Pies have had a couple of really good wins. What's impressed you, and how are they dangerous?
Yeah, Craig McRae's done a really good job with them, hasn't he? I think what they're doing well is they've got some really experienced players, spread across the field who are playing really well, and then they've got this exuberant youth that are coming through and giving them some energy, and we're going to have our work cut out. They played really well on the weekend, and they've been in some really good form. I think they've had a couple of other losses that could have easily gone their way. So they're a good side, and we'd expect to be a pretty good challenge. But we know we need to play significantly better than we did on the weekend.
Last couple of weeks, superb win against the Lions, and then, by your own admission, disappointing on the weekend. Is that the gap between your best and your worst? Is that something you expected this season?
I didn't know what to expect around that area. I think the pleasing thing about our game is some parts of our game are strong, but we can't produce them every single game, which is to be expected. And normally what happens, particularly with an experienced group, is you find other ways to get wins or you find other ways to get success. And I think even as an individual player, you find a way to play well, but then it might rain or the wind's different or the other team plays differently, and you take some time to work out how to play well in lots of different situations. And us as a team, we're probably at that point now. If the game's played in a certain way, we'll be okay. When the game is played in lots of different manners, we're still finding our feet for how to perform in different situations, and certainly we haven't produced good enough football for long enough stints to be considered a consistent team, and that'll be our journey.